Alright, well, I have to return my Borrow lenses D600 and the lenses that came with it today. So I figured before I do so, I would create a quick review on the Graflex Speed Graphic. No, this is not a lunchbox. However, it is from the 40s. I've dated the lens on this camera to 1948 around. So I'm assuming that the camera's around that same time period, which would be accurate because it's one of the later models. It's going to be hard to get this all in the frame because this camera does expand quite a bit, as you will see. But let me just show you some of the basics here. Now, one of the unique things about this is it is a 4x5 SLR, which means it is a single lens reflex, only it is going onto 4x5 inch film. Some of you may not be aware that that even existed, but yes, it does. In fact, it has such advanced features, actually, is what we'd consider today. It actually had a diaphragm in the lens, which would actually stop down to your desired aperture. I don't know if you can see it here, but you would set the lens aperture with this pin here, and then when you fire the shutter, the aperture snaps down right before the shutter is about to trigger. Let me see if I can get a better closer on that lens. See if I can brighten this up a little bit. Yeah, it's not great. Hold on. Anyway, should have gone with the 24 to 70 for this. We have here shutter speeds that range from 1/30th of a second to 1/1000th of a second. So I have 30, 60, 125, 300, 400, 800, and 1000. And that works with a roller blind shutter. It's basically a giant RB67. This right here is a mirror release and the shutter trigger. I have this thing here which acts as a lens hood. I have the bellows obviously for focusing. This right here tensions the high and low speeds. So I have a whole set of low speeds, 30 to 125, 300, 800, and the high speed 60, 200, 400, 1000. This here is the mirror lockdown lever. You have to reset the mirror for every shot, like some of the older film SLRs, which this is one. This right here can be used to manually trigger the shutter when the mirror is locked down easily. And I can actually do mirror locked up time exposures. Right now it is I just fired the mirror, but it's not firing the shutter, and I can use this to fire the shutter. So let me reset that. Or I can set it to do it all at once. Just like an SLR, the mirror fires, shutter fires. Oh, it's still... See, there you go. And it actually has SLR focusing, which is facilitated by means of this chimney look-down focusing hood. Let me see if I can get that in frame. It's probably out of frame. Yeah. There we go. That's a lot better. But yeah, as you can see, it's just a beautiful camera. And at the end of this video, I will either add some photos or link to some photos that you can go take a look at that were done with this camera. I can actually get a trick setting. I think 1/5 and 1/10 is the trick setting for the roller blind shutter by doing something called a drop curtain. Let's show you the back here. Mirrors down. It's got a giant roller blind shutter which has different slits, and that is how it adjusts the exposure for the different curtain tensions. See, the largest slit gets smaller, so you could even do a 1/1000th of a second exposure by setting it to its highest setting, which is on. The D shutter curtain tension. I'll give you a close-up of the diagram later. But yeah, 1/1000th of a second. These are all the high tensions, so I just reset the mirror. Your next is going to be 1/400th. Or 1/200th. And then lastly it's 1/60th. And then after that it goes to open. And that's the drop curtain. And on the drop curtain I can actually sync X-Sync. I can sync modern flashes, not just flash bulbs. So that actually comes incredibly handy. I can look through handheld for portraiture in a studio and see exactly what I'm doing, focus, and then fire. Anybody who's worked with a large format camera before understands the drawbacks of what you're focusing on when you actually end up shooting due to model movement or whatever, but you try to negate that by I really can't talk today, what's wrong with me? You try to negate that by stopping down or using enough flash power that you can stop down to somewhere in the area of f/22, f/32, something like that, or shooting outdoors. But that's not always possible, and I really like the narrow focus effect that you get from shooting large format cameras. In fact, that is one of my favorite things about large format cameras, is that you can actually shoot like this, and this you can shoot handheld. You look down the chimney finder like this, focus, and shoot. It's really that simple, and it's an incredible design. Now something about this is that it also has a rotating back, which I'm about to get to. This here is in landscape orientation, and it rotates, portrait orientation. I don't think I've mentioned the lens in detail so far. It is a 190mm f5.6 Ektar. So let me pull this out. They are mounted on lens boards, and it is a beautiful lens. Coated optics. Yeah, that's not happening. I'll give you some close-ups later. Oh, what the hell are we doing now? Hold on. Alright, I've switched to the 50mm handheld so I can show you some more of the smaller details about this camera. There's the lens, shutter, rotating back with film holder in it, tensioning knob for the high and low settings, and here is the shutter diagram. The top part there is the winding key for the shutter slits. The back is shutter release, and that right there in the lower part with the little lever is the mirror release, and it is also the lever you use for setting timed exposures. And there's a focus knob. Now this right here is the pin you use to set your aperture in the lens, and that right there is a little latch. So when you're firing the camera, it actually releases this and snaps down the aperture right before it hits the curtain and pulls up the mirror. So it's rather slow and clunky in terms of SLR functioning. However, it is SLR functioning on 4x5 inch film. And you got a nice little Graflex branding here. It was just coated with neat sweet oil, so that's what that stuff is. Moisturizer from the neat sweet oil. This camera actually just recently came back from a CLA, so it is now functioning extremely smoothly, and I'm quite happy with it. So let me show you a little bit of the viewfinder. Mirror down. I don't know if the 50 can focus as close. Yeah, let me try to get some a little bit better for this. Alright, well, I'm gonna have to be really unclassy and finish this with my phone, as my the D600 from Borrow Lenses is a little too cumbersome to do stuff like this with. Also, it's packed away in the box. This right here is the viewfinder, and as you can see, focus it in like an SLR. I have a 5x5 inch ground glass, and it has cropping marks. And you can actually see the ground glass if I release the, there you go. There's a ground glass right there. And now, I got the idea from John Minnick, so giving credit where credit's due. But this right here is just a piece of wood I built with some focusing diopters. Well, close-up filters. And the idea is to put this here and have it act as if anybody's ever used a TLR, twin lens reflex, that has a waist level viewfinder, or even just a medium format SLR, you know that it has a device which helps you focus, critical focusing magnifier. So I tried building something similar. The effectiveness is yet to be proven. Just looking through, it's not super effective, but it does help a little bit. So that remains to be seen, how much it actually does help. And that is it. That is the Graflex RB Super D SLR. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll probably do something else later, a speed graphic review or something.